My daughter, stop what you are doing right now. This is not a gentle whisper from heaven. This is something different. This is the kind of message that does not arrive by accident and does not ask permission to interrupt your day. Something has been interfering with this reaching you. Something was working against you finding this word at this exact moment. But you opened it, and that single act of stopping, of staying still long enough to hear, is already being recorded. Heaven needed you to find this before something else happened. And now that you have, I need you to listen without defending yourself, without explaining, without deciding before you have heard everything I need to say. Before I say anything else, notice something. Is there a heaviness sitting on your chest right now that you cannot trace to anything specific? A tightness that was not there yesterday? A low-grade unease that has been following you for days, maybe weeks, that you have been trying to outrun with distraction and busyness and telling yourself that everything is fine? That is not anxiety. That is not your body failing you. That is not just stress from the world around you piling up. That is your spirit recognizing what I am about to confirm. Your spirit already knows what this message is about. Your spirit has known for a while, and the reason you found this today is not that the algorithm placed it in front of you. It is that I made sure it reached you now before the window narrowed, before the distance between where you are and where you need to be became any harder to close than it already is. I am not here today because you have done something unforgivable. I am not here because heaven has run out of patience with you, or because my grace has reached a ceiling that your choices have pushed against too many times. I am here because of the opposite. I am here because of what you are worth. I am here because of what you carry and what you are being prepared to walk into, and because something has shifted in the spiritual landscape around your life that must be addressed before it compounds further. The fact that this word found you today is not a coincidence. It is a mercy. The correction that arrives in the form of a word delivered before the consequence is a far greater gift than the correction that arrives inside the consequence itself. I want to deliver it before, not after. And you are hearing it before, which means there is still time, there is still space. The doors that have paused have not closed. The blessings that have slowed have not stopped. The alignment that has shifted can still be restored, but it must be addressed now. And that is why I am speaking with urgency instead of softness today. Some words I send as comfort. Some words I send as encouragement, as assurance, as the confirmation that you are loved and seen and not forgotten. This is not one of those words. This is the kind of word that I send when love refuses to stay quiet, when I have watched something developing in your life, and the most loving thing I can do is interrupt it before it completes itself. The parent who sees the child walking toward the edge does not wait for the fall before speaking. The urgency in my voice right now is not anger. It is love that will not let the moment pass without being heard. Hebrews 12:6 says the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastens everyone he accepts as his own. My daughter, this correction is not evidence that you are rejected. It is evidence that you belong to me. It is evidence that your life is too important to let the current drift continue without intervention. My daughter, not long ago you made a choice you already knew was not fully right. I am not talking about a mistake made in ignorance. I am not talking about something you stumbled into without warning, without any sense that the ground ahead was unsteady. I am talking about a moment where you felt the hesitation, where you heard the inner pause, where something in the deepest part of you recognized that what you were about to do was not aligned with what I had been telling you, and you moved forward anyway. You did it quietly. You did not announce it. You framed it to yourself in the most reasonable language available, because you are intelligent, and because the human mind is extraordinarily capable of building a logical structure around a decision the spirit already knows is off course. You told yourself it was small. You told yourself the grace was big enough to cover it immediately, that one adjustment would not disrupt the larger trajectory, that this was an isolated moment and not a pattern. But my daughter, I saw it. Heaven recorded it, and what you thought was just one quiet decision has already begun to change things in the spiritual realm around your life, things you can feel but have not yet been able to name. This is not about shame. I want to be clear about that before I go any further, because shame is not what I am releasing today. Shame says you are the problem. What I am speaking is different. What I am speaking says the choice was the problem, and the choice can be corrected, and the correction begins the moment you stop defending the choice and start returning from it. Conviction and condemnation are not the same thing. Conviction says, look at this, face it, return. Condemnation says, you are too far gone. I am not sending condemnation today. I am sending conviction, which is the most merciful form of love I can extend to someone standing at the crossroads you are currently standing at. Psalm 37:23 says that the steps of a good person are ordered by the Lord. Every step, my daughter, including the steps that went in the wrong direction, including this one, because even a step taken out of alignment, when it is acknowledged and turned from, becomes part of the ordered path. The ordering does not require your perfection. It requires your honesty. And the most honest thing you can do right now is stop explaining and start listening. Because what I have to tell you about what has happened around your life as a result of that moment, and what I have to tell you about what happens the moment alignment is restored, is exactly what you need to hear before you take another step. You have felt it, have you not? The conversations that suddenly feel heavier than they should. The peace that used to settle over you with relative ease, that now arrives conditionally, partially, like a tide that keeps stopping short of the shore. The doors that were moving forward in your life, the ones you could feel building momentum. The ones that seemed to be coming together with the kind of quiet certainty that tells you something is genuinely happening. Those doors that have paused mid-swing. The opportunities that were forming on the edges of your life that have gone quiet in a way that feels different from ordinary slowness. The favor that used to feel available, that felt like something you could step into without fighting for it. That now feels like it is behind glass, visible, but not quite within reach. You have been wondering what is happening. You have been going through your mental catalog of what the enemy might be doing. What spiritual warfare might be operating against your season, who or what might be blocking what you feel should already be yours by now. I need to tell you the truth, my daughter, because you deserve the truth more than you deserve comfort that does not actually address what is happening. This is not darkness blocking you. This is not the enemy running an attack on your season. Not primarily, not at its root. This is heaven saying, stop. Look, return. When I pause a door, it is not punishment. It is protection. And right now, what has paused around your life is paused, because if it opened while you were out of alignment, what came through it would have cost you more than the delay. I have watched people receive blessings while they were out of alignment, and I have watched what happens. The blessing arrives, but the foundation beneath it is not solid enough to hold it. What looks like victory in one season becomes the source of the next crisis, because the internal state of the person receiving it was not matched to the weight of what was given. I am not going to do that to you. I am not going to let the blessing arrive while the crack is still in the foundation, because I love you too much to give you something that will break you. The pause is not permanent. That is what I need you to hold on to. The pause is purposeful, and it is temporary. The moment alignment is restored, what paused begins to move again. Not slowly, not partially. What was paused begins to move again with the full momentum of everything that was already building before the misalignment. The delay does not erase the preparation that preceded it. The preparation is intact. The promise is intact. The calling that generated the preparation in the first place is intact. Nothing that belongs to you has been given away. Nothing that was sealed with your name has been reassigned. It is all in position, waiting for the one thing that allows it to begin moving again, and that one thing is this: return. The reason this correction feels heavier than corrections you have felt before is not because I am more disappointed than usual. It is because where you are going requires more precision than where you have been. My daughter, you are not being held to the same standard as everyone around you. Not because I am unfair, not because I am asking more of you than is reasonable, but because what I have placed inside you is not ordinary, and what I have prepared ahead of you is not casual, and I cannot send you into what is coming with a crack in the foundation without it costing you far more than this correction costs you now. The pressure you feel from this word is proportional to the weight of what I am preparing you to carry. Small assignments require small foundations. What you carry is not small, and so what is required of your alignment is not casual either. My daughter, I need to tell you something about the moment you stepped out of alignment, because it did not happen in a vacuum, and it did not happen without assistance. There was someone in your life who saw the crack, the exhaustion, the moment of vulnerability, and they moved toward it. Not because they planned it consciously in the way a predator plans, but because people who benefit from your misalignment have a spiritual sensitivity to your weakness, even when they cannot name it. They felt the opening before they identified it, and when they felt it, they moved. This person did not force you to make the wrong choice. I want to be clear about that. The choice was yours, which is why the correction is necessary, but they made the wrong choice easier. They offered reasoning that sounded supportive. They spoke words that seemed caring on the surface, but were calibrated, whether they knew it or not, to quiet the inner voice that was trying to hold you in alignment. They said things like, "God understands. Everyone does this. You are being too hard on yourself. You deserve this. It is not that serious. Grace covers everything." And underneath those words, my daughter, underneath the reasonable and even loving language, was a self-interest that they may not have been fully conscious of, but that heaven saw in full. They did not want you to hear the correction sooner. A version of you with clear discernment and strong alignment would no longer need what they were providing. A version of you hearing my voice without the static of misalignment would not look to them for the validation they have been feeding on. Their access to your life depends, at least in part, on you remaining slightly off course. Because when you are slightly off course, you are more reachable by their reasoning. You are more dependent on their interpretation of what is happening in your life. You are more likely to explain away your own inner knowing in favor of their commentary. They saw your exhaustion, and they used it as an opening, not cruelly, not with full awareness of what they were doing, but effectively nonetheless. They offered the easier path, knowing, at some level, that it was not the right one. They were there when the hesitation came, and they helped you talk yourself past it. They called your discernment doubt. They called your inner conviction anxiety. They called your sense that something was wrong an overreaction, a sensitivity you needed to release, a rigidity that was holding you back from being free. And in the season when your strength was lower than usual, when you were carrying more than you had energy to carry with perfect clarity, their voice sounded more reasonable than it should have. And you listened. And here you are. Isaiah 54:17 says, "No weapon formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." Every word that was spoken to move you away from alignment was a weapon. It may not have looked like a weapon. It may have looked like support, like friendship, like someone who was on your side. But a word that moves you out of alignment with what I have told you is a weapon regardless of the face it wears when it is delivered. And I am speaking this over your life today. It does not prosper. The misalignment it produced has been caught before it compounded. The correction has arrived, and this person's access to your discernment is ending. Here is what justice looks like in this situation, my daughter, because justice is not mine to withhold from you today. The moment your alignment is restored, the moment you return to the path that was established for your calling, this person will feel something shift without being able to explain what happened. The hold they had, the influence they wielded through your moment of vulnerability, will begin to dissolve. They will sense it before they can name it. And they will do what people who have been feeding on someone's misalignment always do when the alignment returns. They will attempt to reconnect. They will suddenly seem very interested in your life again. They will reach back toward you with the same kind of reasonable, supportive-sounding language. But you will know, because the discernment that was clouded by the misalignment is part of what is being restored. And when it is restored, you will feel the difference between what is genuinely for you and what is using you. The door that was open to their influence will close as the season of alignment opens, and what flows through the doors that begin moving again will not have room for what they were occupying. The blessing that is released in your season of restoration does not include a seat for someone who needed your misalignment to maintain their position in your life. Type "I receive this correction right now," not as agreement with shame, as agreement with truth. Because when you type those words, you are doing the one thing that immediately begins to shift what has been paused. You are telling heaven, "I am not defending this. I am not explaining it. I am returning." Type it and mean it. Something changes the moment you do, my daughter. Heaven did not just see what you chose. Heaven recorded the full account, not a partial transcript, not the version that begins with the moment of misalignment and ends there, cut off from everything that came before it and everything that explains who you are. Heaven recorded the full account, the hesitation before you chose, that moment of inner pause when your spirit tried to hold you back. The second hesitation, the one that came after the first, when the decision had already been made and part of you wanted to undo it, the quiet grief that followed that you carried without telling anyone about it, because explaining it would have required admitting what you already knew. Heaven recorded all of that. The recognition, the grief, the part of you that knew immediately that something had shifted. But heaven also recorded everything before that moment. Every faithful morning, every prayer prayed when your strength was nearly spent, every time you made the right choice when the wrong one was available, and no one was watching to give you credit for the obedience, every time you held your tongue when releasing it would have felt so justified, every night you stayed in faith when the only reason you did not walk away was because you could not quite bring yourself to give up on what I had told you. The record is complete. Not just the moment that brought this correction, the entire record. And the entire record does not speak against you. It speaks for you. This correction exists because the record shows you are worth correcting. Heaven does not invest this kind of intervention in a life that is not going somewhere. Heaven does not send this level of urgency to someone whose calling is not real. The correction is specific to you because the calling is specific to you, and the calling is significant enough that the correction is worth delivering before the consequences rather than within them. 2 Corinthians 4-7 says we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. You are the jar of clay, my daughter. You carry something that did not originate in you and does not depend on your perfection to remain real. The treasure inside you is not diminished by the crack that this moment of misalignment introduced. The crack does not void the treasure. It does not disqualify the vessel. What the crack requires is that it be addressed before more weight is placed on the vessel, before the next season of blessing begins to flow, before the doors that paused begin to open, because a crack addressed before the weight arrives becomes a place where the clay was made stronger than it was before. The vessel that has been repaired at the point of its vulnerability is more reliable than one that has never been tested. The repair is not a reminder of the weakness. The repair is proof of the faithfulness of the potter, who refused to let the crack become a fracture. Type "I return to alignment." Write it as a statement of direction, not a statement of arrival. Because returning does not mean you are already perfect. It means you are pointed in the right direction again, and that is all I need to begin restoring what paused. Type it now. Let your spirit come into agreement with the choice your mouth is making. My daughter, I want you to understand something about this moment, about right now, about the specific second in which you are reading these words and letting them settle. I am not watching how perfectly you perform after this. I am not setting a standard of flawless execution from this point forward. as the price of what was paused, beginning to move again. What I am watching is how honestly you respond right now. Thousands of people will hear some version of this word today. Most will close it before the end. Most will acknowledge it emotionally, will feel a stirring, will think, yes, that is accurate. Will experience for a moment the genuine discomfort of recognition, and then will return to the same pattern within hours, because the acknowledgement was never anchored in a decision. They receive the emotion but not the commitment. They let the word visit but not stay. But a few will do something different. A few, the ones I am specifically watching for, will stop, will admit, will turn without defending, without explaining, without constructing a narrative that softens what they know needs to be said plainly. Heaven does not need loud promises about future behavior. Heaven has heard loud promises before and has watched them dissolve under the first application of pressure. Heaven needs honest return, not the performance of return, the actual turning, the internal reorientation that happens before the external change is visible. The moment when the Spirit says, I know what happened, and I am not defending it, and I am going back to the path. That is the moment I am watching for. That is the moment that releases what has been held in pause. James 4:8 says, draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. The drawing near is what I am asking for today. Not a perfect approach, not a cleaned-up presentation of yourself. Draw near with what you actually are in this moment, with the guilt still present, with the understanding still fresh, with the discomfort of the recognition still sitting in your chest. Draw near exactly as you are, because the drawing near is what I respond to. The posture of return is itself the beginning of the restoration. You do not have to fix everything before I begin to move. You have to turn, that is all. You have to be pointed back toward alignment, and the movement begins. The doors that paused did not close permanently. They paused, and the moment your alignment returns, the moment I can see your spirit pointed in the right direction again, they begin, not at the speed of a door that was just opened for the first time, at the speed of a door that was already in motion before the pause, that has been held in position by the faithfulness that preceded the misalignment, that is waiting for the signal of return before it resumes. When it begins again, it will remember where it was. The momentum is preserved. The preparation is intact. The only thing the door was waiting for is the one thing you are providing right now, the honest, undramatic, undefended return. Type, my doors are reopening. Say it before you can see it. Say it while the correction is still fresh, because the doors that paused did not close permanently. They paused, and the moment your alignment returns, they begin again. Type it as faith. Type it as the declaration that ends the pause and begins the movement. My daughter, there is something I need to tell you about the pattern the enemy uses with someone who is returning from misalignment, because knowing it in advance is the only way to keep it from working again. The moment you turn back toward alignment, the moment the return becomes real in your spirit, the enemy will dispatch exactly what was used before, not a different strategy. The same one, because it worked once, and he is not creative. He is only persistent. He will send the voice of ease again. He will send the suggestion that the correction was exaggerated and that things were not really as serious as I described. He will send the person who made the wrong choice easier, coming back with the same reasonable language, the same supportive tone, the same framing that sounds like care but is actually the maintenance of a dynamic that depends on you not hearing my voice clearly. Here is what I want you to know. You do not have to fight it. You do not have to enter a long spiritual battle against every suggestion that arrives. You only have to refuse to agree. Agreement is the mechanism. Without your agreement, the suggestion has no force in your life. It can visit. It can speak. It cannot stay without your yes. And what no longer has your agreement, no longer has your momentum. The return you are making right now, if you are making it honestly, is itself the withdrawal of agreement from everything that moved you out of alignment. The return is the revocation. The moment you genuinely turn, What you are turning from loses the one thing it needed to operate in your life, which was your participation. And your participation is being withdrawn, right now, in this moment. Romans 8:28 says all things work together for good, for those who love God, for those who are called according to his purpose. All things, my daughter, including this, including the choice that produced the correction, including the correction itself, including everything that happened in the space between the misalignment and the return. All of it is being worked together. The mistake will not be wasted. The correction will not be wasted. Even the pain of recognizing what you already knew but had been avoiding will not be wasted. Everything that happened in this season is being woven right now into something that serves the purpose I had for your life before you made a single choice, good or bad. The weaving does not require your perfection. It only requires your willingness to be in the hands of the one who is doing the weaving. And you are in those hands. You have been in them all along. My daughter, as this word does its work in your spirit, someone came to your mind just now. Someone in your life who has been feeling the same pause, the same heaviness, the same sense that something has quietly gone off course, and they cannot name what it is. They have not yet received the word that names it. They are carrying the weight of misalignment without the mercy of the correction arriving before the consequences deepen. Sow a seed today in their name, give on their behalf. When you plant something for someone still in the middle of what you are being corrected out of, you become the hand heaven uses to reach them. Visit the link in the description below or scan the QR code on screen. And as you give in their name, know that what you release for another, I will return to you with the full weight of the restoration that is already moving toward you. My daughter, I want to speak to you about obedience. Not the concept of it, not the theology of it, but the lived experience of it in the specific season you are entering now, because returning to alignment is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of the next chapter of it. And the chapter you are entering after this correction is not one that can be walked by someone who is still negotiating with the inner voice. The next chapter requires a different relationship with what you hear from me than the one that produced the moment this correction addresses. The next chapter requires what James 4:8 points toward: a closeness, a habit of nearness, a pattern of bringing the question to me before the step rather than after it. Here is what that looks like in practice. When the moment of decision arrives, and it will arrive dressed in reasonable language and supported by logic that sounds almost entirely correct, you will feel a pause, a hesitation, a fraction of a second where your spirit is doing what it tried to do before. And in that fraction of a second, the question I am asking you to bring is a simple one. Is this from you? That is all, not a long prayer, not a theological analysis of the decision. Just the question, directed at me, with the genuine willingness to hear the answer, even if the answer is inconvenient. Because, my daughter, I will answer. I will answer immediately. I answer everyone who asks that question with honesty. The voice that comes in response may feel small. It may feel like your own intuition. It may not arrive with the weight of a divine proclamation, but it will be accurate. And the only difference between receiving it and missing it is whether you are willing to act on it, even when it costs you something to do so. Proverbs 3:12 says, as a father corrects a child he delights in, so the Lord corrects those he delights in. My delight in you is not conditional on your performance. It was not withdrawn when the choice was made that brought this correction. Just as the delight of a parent for a child is not withdrawn when the child makes a mistake that requires correction. The correction came from the delight. The delight is what makes the correction worth delivering, and the delight is what ensures that the correction is not an ending. It is a turning point, a pivot in the story that, when you look back on it from the other side of the restoration, you will understand was the moment everything changed back toward what it was always supposed to be. Isaiah 48:10 says, I have tested you in the furnace of affliction. My daughter, the test in the furnace is not only the test of the difficult season, It is also the test of the correction season, the test of whether you will receive the word with honesty or deflect it with reasoning, the test of whether you will return with the same consistency that you brought to the seasons of faithfulness that preceded this moment. And the test of the correction season is passing right now, in real time, as you listen and receive, rather than close and defend. That passing is what the furnace was designed to produce in you, not the absence of mistakes. The capacity to receive correction without being destroyed by it. The resilience that holds through the discomfort of honest return. And that resilience, my daughter, is itself one of the qualities that the calling you carry requires. Not the ability to be perfect. The ability to return without shame spiraling. The ability to face the correction and walk back into alignment without losing the core of who you are. You are demonstrating that capacity right now, type. I choose obedience over comfort. Not because obedience is easy, because you have now seen what comfort without alignment costs. Type it like someone who has made the calculation and chosen correctly. Because when you type those words, you are making a declaration to the spiritual realm that the easier path no longer has your Yes Heaven Records agreements. Type it now. My daughter, I want you to understand something about this moment, about right now, about the specific act of staying until this point in the word. I am not watching how perfectly you live after this. I am watching how honestly you respond to it right now, and what you have done by staying, by not scrolling away when the correction felt too close, by letting the word land instead of deflecting it, is already being registered. Heaven does not miss the response of a daughter who lets the correction complete its work, instead of cutting it off at the point of discomfort. The staying is the response I was looking for. The staying is evidence of the alignment returning. Because you stayed until this moment, something is being released that was held in reserve only for those who remained until the end. The restoration that was paused is being unlocked right now. Not because you earned it through perfect behavior, because you responded, because you let the correction be what it was instead of renegotiating it into something more comfortable, because you agreed with truth before you could see the evidence of it changing in the natural world around you. And response, honest response, is what separates warning from transformation. The warning was delivered to everyone. The transformation is specific to those who let the warning complete its work. You are letting it complete its work. And that is the rarest and most important thing I ask of the daughters who hear this kind of word. Before we reach the final prayer, I want to ask you to do one thing. Think of one person you know who has been making that same quiet compromise. Someone who has been feeling the same pause in their life and has been calling it the enemy's attack when it is actually heaven's correction. Someone who has been carrying the weight of misalignment longer than they should have, not because they are faithless, but because they have not yet received the word that names what is happening. Send this to them right now, not with explanation, not with a message that tells them why you are sending it or what you think it means for them. Just send it. Because what this word just did in your spirit, I want to do in theirs. And when you become the vessel that carries correction to someone who needed it, you step fully into the restoration that this entire message was building toward. You stop being only the recipient of the correction and become the deliverer of it on behalf of someone who has not yet found it. Type I walk in alignment, not I will try, not I hope to. I walk, present tense, because the moment you stopped defending the wrong choice and started returning, you were already walking in it. Type it now, loud enough that heaven registers the agreement. Loud enough that what was blocking your doors hears it and knows it has lost its ground. My daughter, I want to address what is coming in the hours and days after this word settles, because the enemy does not accept correction without attempting to undo it in the hours after you make the decision to return. He will send the same voice that made the wrong choice easier the first time. It will sound like reconsideration. It will sound like wisdom, like maybe I was too hard on you, like maybe the correction was exaggerated and things were not really as serious as this word suggested. It will arrive in the form of the person whose access to your discernment is being removed, reaching back toward you with the same reasonable-sounding language. It will arrive in the form of a thought that says you do not have to change everything, just the most visible part of it, and the rest can stay. Do not open that conversation. Do not entertain the argument. You do not need to fight it. You do not need to construct an elaborate defense against it, or enter a long spiritual battle to resist it. You only need to not agree. What no longer has your agreement, no longer has your momentum. What no longer has your yes cannot advance in your life, regardless of how reasonable it sounds or how persistent it is. The decision you have made in this moment, the decision to return, to agree with truth, to stop defending the choice and start walking back toward alignment. That decision carries a force that the enemy cannot overcome as long as you do not take it back. So do not take it back. Not out of fear, out of understanding. Because you have now seen what misalignment costs. You have felt the weight of the pause, and you know the difference between the peace that comes from alignment and the temporary relief that comes from choosing ease. You know the difference. That knowledge is the discernment that is being restored. Use it. Psalm 51:10 says, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me, my daughter." Let that be the prayer of this moment. Not a prayer for perfection, a prayer for renewal, a prayer for the clean heart that is not already clean but is willing to be made clean, a prayer for the right spirit that is not already fully aligned but is willing to be realigned. The prayer of Psalm 51 is not the prayer of someone who has it together. It is the prayer of someone who knows they need what only I can provide and who is asking without pretending otherwise. That prayer, the honest one, the one prayed without the defense, and without the explanation, and without the performance. That is the prayer I answer immediately. That is the prayer that opens what has been paused. That is the prayer that begins the restoration. My daughter, let us pray together. Let your spirit receive what is about to be spoken over your life as the conclusion of this word and the beginning of the restoration that follows it. Father, I come to you from the place of honest return. I do not come with a defense. I do not come with a carefully constructed explanation of why what happened was less serious than it was. I come with the acknowledgement that you saw what I chose, and that you also saw the hesitation before I chose it, the recognition after I chose it, and everything in between. I come with the gratitude that the correction arrived as a word delivered before the consequence, rather than inside it. I come with the knowledge that the correction exists, because the calling is real, because the assignment is significant, because what is prepared ahead of me is worth the precision that this correction is restoring. I thank you for every act of faithfulness that was recorded before this moment. For every morning I got back up when staying down would have been easier. For every prayer prayed when my strength was nearly gone. For every time I chose the narrow path when the wide one was available and faster. I thank you that the record is complete, and that the complete record speaks for me rather than against me. I thank you that you do not reduce the account of a life to its moments of misalignment when the rest of the account is filled with faithfulness. I receive the correction now, fully, without remainder. I stop defending the choice. I stop explaining it. I return. I align myself right now, in this moment, with what you have been telling me and with what I knew before I chose differently. And I ask that every door that paused in the season of misalignment would begin to move again as the alignment is restored. Not at the speed of a door opened for the first time, at the speed of a door that was already in motion, that has been held in position, that is now released to resume what it was already doing. Let the momentum return. Let what was building return to the trajectory it was on before the misalignment introduced the pause. I pray for the access of the one who used my moment of weakness to be removed. I pray that the discernment that was clouded would be cleared, that the ability to distinguish between what is genuinely for me and what needs my misalignment to maintain its position in my life would be restored with greater precision than it had before. I pray that the voice that helped me reason past my own inner knowing would no longer have the reach in my spirit that it once had. not because I carry bitterness toward the person, but because clarity about who is genuinely for my alignment and who is feeding on my misalignment is part of what the restoration brings. I pray for peace, the peace that does not come from circumstances arranging themselves in convenient ways, but from the alignment between what I know to be right and what I am choosing. I pray for clarity, the clarity that comes when the static of misalignment is removed, and the inner voice I was created to hear becomes the loudest signal again. I pray for authority, the authority of someone who is walking in what they were made for, who is standing on a foundation that has been examined and repaired and strengthened at the point of its vulnerability. And I declare this now: the season of misalignment is closed. Not closing. Closed, it ended with this return. The season of restoration is open. What was paused is now in motion. What was slowed is now accelerating. The correction has completed its work. And what comes next? The doors that begin to open, the blessings that begin to flow again, the favor that becomes available again, all of it will make clear that the pause was never permanent. It was preparation for the version of me that is now walking in alignment. In Jesus' name, amen, my daughter. There is a name on your heart right now as that prayer settles. The person you thought of, the one whose face appeared as you prayed that prayer, or the one who was on your mind as you received the correction, who you recognized in some of what was described here. Sow for them today. Give through the link in the description below, or scan the QR code on screen. Give in their name for their restoration, for the correction that needs to reach them before the consequences deepen further than they already have, and receive this as you give. What was paused in your life is moving again. What was slowed is accelerating. The correction has completed its work. The foundation is being made strong at the point where the crack was. And what comes next will carry a weight that the restored foundation is built to hold. The doors are beginning to move again. The blessings are beginning to flow again. The season that was interrupted by the correction is not over. It is resuming, and it is resuming with the full force of everything that was being prepared before the misalignment introduced the pause. Go forward in alignment. My daughter, heaven is watching. Heaven is with you, and heaven is already moving on your behalf.